Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Confidence Speaking Podcast. I'm Jessica, your host, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you're ready to move beyond textbook English and speak like a native, you've come to the right place. We're here to help you not just study English, but to truly live it and speak it with natural confidence every day. Our mission is to transform both your language skills and your mindset, because confident speaking starts from within. If you're new to our community, make sure to hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss our daily real-world English content that will change how you approach language learning. Have you ever experienced a moment when you're expressing your thoughts in English, but partway through your explanation, your words weren't flowing together as smoothly as you hoped? Perhaps you discovered yourself saying too much or desperately searching for the perfect words, attempting to tie up your thoughts properly. This scenario might occur, for instance, when a colleague requests your perspective during a meeting, and once again, you struggle to articulate why you hold a particular viewpoint. Or maybe a friend shares her thoughts about a film you both recently watched, and again, you find yourself uncertain about how to organize your ideas coherently. If this description sounds familiar to you, here's what I want you to understand. It's absolutely not because your English proficiency isn't adequate. It's simply because you haven't mastered the appropriate connectors yet. Words like because, so that, and due to, these connectors enhance your flow and help your ideas feel structured rather than scattered throughout your speech. They also enable you to explain your reasoning clearly, which makes your opinion stronger and more engaging for your listeners. Ultimately, this helps you sound confident and professional instead of hesitant or uncertain about your own perspectives. I want you to consider this for a moment. When you hear someone confidently explain why they believe something specific, doesn't it make their opinion more persuasive to you? That's exactly what we're going to work on developing today. By the conclusion of this lesson, you'll possess the best professional connectors to explain your reasoning smoothly and naturally. You'll also have a simple structure to make your opinions sound polished and professional when speaking English. Ultimately, you'll gain more confidence in sharing your thoughts without hesitation or over-explaining your points. Now, I want you to stay with me throughout this lesson because at the end, I do have a challenge prepared for you so you can put all of these strategies together and start using the right connectors effectively. To get started, let's discuss how to structure your opinion so that it's clear, logical, and easy to follow for your listeners. English speakers naturally use a three-part structure when we're expressing an opinion or sharing our perspective. The first step is to clearly state your opinion with confidence. This is where you introduce your perspective in a direct, confident manner that leaves no doubt about your stance. Most of the time, you're going to hear this introduced with sentence starters like, I believe, I think, I would say, and I feel, followed immediately by that direct statement of your perspective. Step 2 involves explaining why you hold that opinion, and this is precisely where the connectors become essential. Strong opinions should always be supported by clear reasoning, and connectors help you explain the why behind your statement effectively. So again, this would include words such as because, since, and due to. However, we're going to learn many more connectors in this lesson today that will expand your vocabulary significantly. Before we get there, let's talk about the third step in forming a clear, logical opinion. Wrap it up with a conclusion or a question that invites discussion. Doing this makes your opinion feel complete and finished, rather than hanging in the air. You can accomplish this by reinforcing your main point or inviting further discussion from your listeners. For example, after stating your opinion and explaining why you have it, you might say, "That's why I think this is an excellent solution." Or, "What do you think about this approach?" Before we dive into our professional connectors, I want to give you two comprehensive examples of this step-by-step process in action. We're going to look at a social example and a professional example. So, let's imagine in a social setting, I might say, I think the new Wicked movie was absolutely fantastic because the actors did complete justice to the roles and didn't stray from the original characters that we all know and love. What did you think about it? Notice how I have my opinion clearly stated, my reasoning explained, and a way to reinforce or invite discussion on that opinion. And now let's examine a professional option that you might use in a workplace setting. I believe we should adjust the project timeline since the current deadlines don't give us enough time for proper quality control measures. What's your take on this situation? When you structure your opinion in English using this three-step process, and when you include your reason why you have that particular opinion, your ideas become much more clear and significantly more persuasive to your audience. Now, of course, simply following this structure isn't enough to sound natural and confident. The connectors you choose are going to determine how natural and confident you actually sound when speaking. So let's go deeper into the best professional connectors you can use to explain your opinions clearly and effectively in English. We're going to explore 3 categories of connectors today. And we'll start with the most important, explaining why you think something or what happened as a result of a particular situation. We need this because when you're expressing your opinion, you're not just saying what you think, you're answering an important question. Why do you think this? And this is where our connectors come in to make your speech flow naturally. So let's start with cause, or the reason why you have a particular belief or opinion. In English, we have several go-to words for this purpose. The first is the most common, because, which means for this reason or due to the fact that. Next on this list is since, and we use this when the reason for an opinion is already pretty clear or obvious to everyone involved. Now, similar to the word because, we can also use due to. It's very similar in meaning, but slightly more formal in tone. And here's one more that has a very similar meaning. Just like due to, we can use because of. These two function in the same way grammatically. However, of these two options, due to is more formal and because of is used more often in everyday conversation. Now, I've got one more in this list, but before I go there, I know you might be thinking, it sounds like you've just given me a list of words that all have very similar meanings. And you're absolutely right. English speakers love variety in our language. We like to use different vocabulary and sentence structures to keep our speech interesting. This allows us to have more than one way to express what we think, which makes our communication more engaging. Now, you don't have to start using all of these connectors today. My recommendation is to learn 1 or 2 connectors that are new to you. Start incorporating them into your conversations and your writing, and then once you're comfortable with those, you can add a couple more to your repertoire. Now, the last one on this particular list is the word as. We use this when we're emphasizing the result of a situation or when the cause and effect relationship is clear. Let's take a look at how these work in real conversations with practical examples. I want you to imagine you're talking about your company, the place where you work, and you might say, I really like this company because the people are incredibly friendly and supportive. Or maybe you're making weekend plans with friends, and you could say, since the sun is shining beautifully today, let's go to the park instead of staying indoors. Remember, we talked about using since to highlight that the reason for something is already clear and obvious to everyone involved. If you needed to explain why you were late to an important meeting, you might say, I was late due to unexpected heavy traffic on the highway. And when letting someone know why an event was canceled, you could say, the meeting was canceled because of the severe storm that hit the area. And here's one more example using as our connector. As our local coffee shop has permanently closed, we now have to drive 2 miles away to find good coffee. Before we move on to our next category of connectors, I want to talk about something that is grammatically important when we're using the words due to and because of. These are always followed by a noun or noun phrase, like traffic, the storm, or the delay. For example, I cannot say, I was late due to it was raining. That doesn't work for us grammatically. Instead, you would say, I was late because it was raining. This is a simple but important difference that will help you use these connectors correctly. Now, at the start of this section, I highlighted that we're looking at words that help us explain why something happened or what happened as a result. So let's take a look at a few more connectors that help us express the what happened, the result, or consequence of something. For that purpose, we use words like so, and this helps us to show a consequence or an outcome clearly. We might also use which is why. This explains a reason at the beginning or the end of a sentence effectively. Let's take a look at a few practical examples. Let's say that you studied really hard for some important exams and you want to highlight the positive result. You might say, I studied incredibly hard, so I passed all 3 exams with excellent grades. Or maybe your team just had a really successful meeting, and in telling someone else about it, you might say, the meeting went extremely well, which is why we got approval for the entire project. Now, before we move on to our second category of connectors, I want to give you a challenge to practice what we've learned so far. I want you to think about something that you did recently, something meaningful or important to you. Maybe you just started learning English seriously. Maybe you changed jobs, or maybe you moved to a new city for better opportunities. How would you explain why you made that decision? For example, you might start with, I started learning English because, or since I wanted to improve my communication skills, or due to my work environment, I decided to. Take a moment to finish those example sentences in your mind. As always, you can also share them with me in the comments below if you'd like. Now that we've covered connectors for cause and result, let's move on to purpose to further explain the why behind your decisions and actions. Just like expressing what you think, when you share a thought or a decision that you've already made, you're not just talking about what you did. You might also need to explain why you did it. What was your intention or goal? And for that purpose, we use purpose connectors that make your intentions crystal clear. I want to share with you 3 great ways to express why you did something or why you're planning to do something. The first is in order to. This is more formal and allows you to emphasize your intention clearly. Now, a more informal, everyday conversational version of in order to is simply using the word to by itself, and I'll share an example with you in a moment. The third option in this category is so that, and this focuses on the ultimate desired response or outcome that you want to achieve. Here's what all of these would sound like in real conversational examples that you might use. Let's start with evaluating why you started to learn English for work purposes. You might say, I'm taking these English lessons in order to communicate better with my international colleagues at work. Again, using in order to is a more formal version that sounds professional. You might also say, I joined this English course to improve my speaking skills significantly. Or, I'm studying English so that I can work abroad in the future. Again, in that example, we're emphasizing the ultimate goal or desire that you have for your future. Now, I want to pause here for a moment, because in category 1, focusing on cause and results, we had so as a connector. And here, when talking about purpose, we have so that. What's the difference between these two? Let's take a look at 2 example sentences to help clarify this important distinction. The first is, I went by car so that I could take more luggage to the hotel. With so that, we're highlighting the purpose for making that decision. What pros and cons did we evaluate in order to come to that decision? We could also say, I went by car so I was able to take more luggage to the hotel. Here, we're emphasizing the ultimate result or outcome. It might not have been a factor in the original decision, but it was a positive result that occurred. In the end, one is about what you intended to do, purpose, and the other is about what happened in the end, result. So now let's do a quick practice again. I want you to think about a decision that you've made recently, something important to you. Maybe you changed jobs, signed up for a new English class, or decided to move to a different city. I want you to try finishing these sentences. I started learning English to, or I changed careers so that. And now, what if you need to give more than one reason for your opinion? That's where our next category of connectors comes in, because sometimes one reason isn't enough to fully explain your perspective. Maybe you love your neighborhood where you live, and there are multiple reasons why you feel that way. Or maybe you think a decision at work is a great idea, but there's more than one benefit that you want to highlight for your colleagues. For clear, organized speech, we use connectors to add more details and additional reasons. Here's how we can do that effectively. The first option is another reason is. This allows us to add a separate second reason to support a decision or an opinion we've already stated. We can also use plus. This is a bit more casual and quite often used in everyday speech situations. Similar to plus is using also. Very neutral and commonly used in both formal and informal situations. And a fourth option is on top of that.
This adds emphasis and may be used to highlight a surprising detail or an additional benefit. Now, again, let's take a look at all of these in action with realistic examples. Let's say that someone asks you, "Do you like your new neighborhood?" And you might say, "I love my new neighborhood because it's so close to work and saves me commuting time. On top of that, my friends live there and there are many great restaurants nearby that we can enjoy together." Or, imagine you're trying to explain why you support a particular company policy to your colleagues. You might say, "This new work-from-home policy is great for those who prefer to work at different times of the day based on their personal schedules. Also, it helps employees save money on commuting expenses and reduces stress." And here's one more example. Let's say that you're giving feedback to someone on a new cafe that you tried recently. You might say, "I love this new cafe. The coffee's excellent and the atmosphere is really welcoming. Plus, they have delicious pastries that are freshly baked every morning." Now, one important thing to keep in mind about using "on top of that" or "another reason is," both of these can only be used at the beginning of a sentence. You cannot place them in the middle of a sentence like some other connectors. And once again, let's do a bit of practice to solidify what we've learned. I want you to think of something that you really enjoy or support strongly. It could be your job, a new hobby you've picked up, a policy change at your workplace, or even a favorite restaurant that you recommend to others. How would you give 2 reasons for your particular opinion? You could try, "I love because and plus," or "One reason I support is, another reason is."
And now let's do a quick recap of everything we've accomplished today. Today we did quite a few important things to improve your English communication. We started with a 3-step structure to ensure that you can share a clear, well-organized opinion in English that sounds professional and confident. Then we learned a variety of connectors for cause and result, explaining why something happened or what the outcome was. Next, we moved on to purpose connectors, showing why you did something or what your intentions were. And finally, we learned how to add extra reasons to strengthen an opinion and make it more convincing. So now I want you to put all of this into practice with a real challenge. Here's my challenge for you, and I really encourage you to try this. I want you to think about this question. Why did you choose to learn English? This is a perfect opportunity to practice what we've learned today. In your answer, I want you to try to use at least 2 connectors from today's lesson. You might begin with, "I started learning English because," or "since I wanted to improve my communication skills," or "I'm learning English so that," and then add "another reason is." As always, you can share your answers and your questions with me in the comments below. I read them all and I love hearing from you. Also, if you found this lesson helpful to you and you feel like you learned something valuable today, I would love to know about it. Give this lesson a thumbs up here on YouTube, and while you're at it, make sure you subscribe so you never miss one of our Confident English lessons. We post new lessons regularly to help you improve your English communication skills. Thank you so much for joining me today and for investing your time in improving your English. I look forward to seeing you next time for another lesson that will help you communicate more confidently and professionally in English. Take care. Bye.